Hello my lovely students, welcome back to the third part from Unit 3 Lesson 1 Food Relationships Among Living Organisms. In the previous video, we have learned that there are three types of the food relationships: predation, symbiosis, and saprophytism. We have talked about predation and we said that predation is a temporary food relationship between predators and prey because it ends up by eating all the prey or part of it. Also, we said that predation happens in plant world like Dionaea and Drosera. They are called insectivorous plants. These plants or these types of plants need proteins and they can't get proteins from the soil, so they need to devour another living organism to get its need from protein. After that, we have talked about symbiosis. And we said that symbiosis is a common food relationship between two different types of living organisms, and it has three types: mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism. We have talked about mutualism and we said that in mutualism, the two livings get benefit from each other, so both of them are happy. Like the relation between nodular bacteria and bean plant. In commensalism, one gets benefit from the other, while the other one neither get benefit nor is harmed, like the relation between sponge and tiny aquatic organisms. So, one of them gets benefit or one of them will be happy while the other doesn't care. Okay, what about parasitism? Today, inshallah, we're gonna talk about parasitism. What is the parasitism? It's a food relationship between two different livings. One of them benefits from the other, and it's known as parasite, while the other is harmed, and it's known as host. So, in parasitism, we have two livings. One of them gets benefit or gets its food from the other, while the other is harmed. The one who gets benefit is known as parasite, while the other who's harmed is known as host. So, we have one will be happy while the other will be so sad. Parasitism has two types. It could be external parasitism or internal parasitism. What's the difference between external parasitism and internal parasitism? External parasitism, like this mosquito. The relation between mosquito and the man is considered as parasitism. Why? You know, guys, that mosquito sucks our blood, right? So, one of them here will get benefit from the other. The mosquito is the parasite and it gets its benefit or gets its food from the man or from the human, while the man here is considered as host. The man here is harmed. Why? Because once the mosquito sucks the blood from this man, it causes some inflammation and scratching. And sometimes mosquito conveys or transports some diseases to the man. So, the relation between mosquito and the man is considered as parasitism. Mosquito is a parasite or the living who gets benefit, and the man or human is the one who will be harmed. And it's external parasitism. The word external, it means that this parasite, which is mosquito in this case, lives externally or outside the host body. As you can see, mosquito sucks the blood from the man outside its body. While in internal parasitism, as you can see, these tiny worms. These tiny worms live inside the host body like the man, and it feeds on all tissues and shares digested food with the man. So external here means outside the host body, like mosquito. But internal parasitism, it means that the parasite lives inside the host's body, like this worm. So let's say again, what's meant by parasitism? It's a food relationship between two different livings. One of them benefits from the other and it's known as parasite, like mosquito and like this worm, while the other is harmed and it's known as host, like the man in two cases. And parasitism has two types, external and internal. External, it means that the parasite lives outside the host's body, but internal, it means that the parasite lives inside the host's body. Let's talk about each one in details to make it clear. The first one, external parasitism. And as I said before, in this relation, the parasite lives externally or outside the host's body and sucks its blood to get its need from food. Like mosquito, lice, ticks, fleas. So all these tiny insects, they suck the blood from the man or any other living to get its need from food. So in this relation, one of them gets benefit or get its food, like mosquito, lice, ticks and fleas, while the other is harmed. As I said before, all these insects, after sucking the blood, it causes some inflammation and scratching, and in the worst case, it could convey some diseases, as I will say after a while. So let's say it again. If I asked you what's meant by external parasitism, it's a food relationship between two different types of living organisms. One of them gets benefit and it's known as parasite, and the other one is harmed and it's known as host. And if I said, or if I added external to the word parasitism, so you must say that the parasite lives externally or outside the host's body. So if I ask you here, complete the following. External parasites, like what, and what. So your answer will be mosquito, lice, ticks, and fleas. If I asked you write a scientific term, it's a food relationship between two different living organisms. One gets benefit from the other while the other is harmed. So this is parasitism. I said that all external parasitism causes some diseases. It could convey or transport or carry a disease for you. Like what? Like mosquito. Mosquito causes or conveys malaria. Malaria is the name of a disease. So, mosquito conveys malaria. You can remember it easily by remembering the first letter from each word. M from mosquito, M from malaria. So, mosquito and malaria. Mosquito conveys malaria. Fleas. This small insect causes what? Causes plague. Plague. So, mosquito conveys malaria and fleas conveys plague. So let's say it again. The first type of parasitism is external parasitism, and we said that in this food relationship, the parasite lives externally on the host's body and sucks its blood from outside its body. Like these small insects, not any small insect is considered as external parasites. Like ant, we can't consider ant as external parasite. I'm talking about the small insects that sucks blood from the livings, like mosquito, lice, ticks, and fleas. Mosquito conveys malaria disease and fleas convey plague. Now let's talk about the internal parasitism. It's the opposite. The parasite here lives internally or inside the host's body and shares the host its digested food, or sometimes they feed on its tissues or cells, like all these worms. Like first one, Bilharzia, Ascaris, tapeworm, and Filaria. Let's say them again. Bilharzia, Ascaris, tapeworm, and Filaria. All these worms are considered as internal parasitism. So if I'm talking about small insects suck the blood from outside the host's body, so this is external parasites. But if I'm talking about any worm lives inside the host's body, on their intestine or stomach or whatever, so this is considered as internal parasites. So let's say them again. In internal parasitism, it's a food relationship in which parasite lives inside the host's body and shares the host its digested food, and sometimes they feed on the tissues and the cells. It's like feeding you from inside. It's terrible. So we have some examples of internal parasites like Bilharzia, Ascaris, tapeworm, and Filaria. As I said before, that all parasites could convey some diseases, like mosquito when it conveyed malaria, and fleas when it convey plague. The same happens here with internal parasites. As example, Filaria worm, this type of worm convey elephantiasis. And elephantiasis is a name of a disease. It makes the leg bigger. So, Filaria conveys elephantiasis. As I said before, it makes the leg or the two legs bigger than the normal size, like the elephant's leg. The second example here, Bilharzia, conveys bilharziasis. So Filaria conveys elephantiasis and Bilharzia conveys bilharziasis. The last example here, Ascaris. Ascaris conveys anemia. So let's say them again. Filaria conveys elephantiasis. Say it with me, please. Filaria conveys elephantiasis. Bilharzia conveys bilharziasis. Ascaris convey anemia. So let's say it again. Internal parasitism, it means it's a food relationship between two different types living organisms. One of them gets benefit from the other and it lives internally or inside the host's body, and the other one is harmed because it shares the host its digested food and sometimes feeds on its tissues and cells. So, in this part, you know that the death of the host, like the man in many examples, is considered as a loss to the parasite. Why? What do you think? Because parasite will lose its source of food. As example, bilharzia. If the man died for any reason, the bilharzia also will die because it will lose its source of food. It won't find any food to get its need from energy. So, if I ask you the reason, the death of the host is considered as a loss to the parasite because parasite will lose its source of food and shelter. And as I said before, shelter means home. So, I want you to remember something, that I said that we have three types of food relationships among living organisms: predation, symbiosis, and saprophytism. We have talked about predation and we finished it, and also we said that symbiosis is divided into three groups, or it has three types: mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism. We have finished this part. We will talk about now saprophytism, but before talking about saprophytism, I want you to watch this video to make it clear.
Symbiosis. With so many organisms living on Earth, living things are bound to interact with one another. Symbiosis is a close relationship between two species. One type of interaction is called mutualism. An example of mutualism exists between honeybees and flowers. Flowers provide nectar to the bees. The bees use the sugar-rich liquid to make honey. But as the bee flies from flower to flower, tiny grains of pollen get stuck to the bee. The bee moves the pollen without even knowing it, and pollen is necessary for flowers to reproduce. In this relationship, both species benefit. The bees get nectar and the flowers get pollinated. Another relationship is called commensalism. This interaction takes place when the sharks and remorae live together. Remorae use sucking discs on their heads to attach themselves to sharks. The sharks are powerful swimmers and do not even notice that the remorae are there. However, the remorae benefit from this relationship. The fish get a free ride, and they also get protection. Also, the remorae feed on scraps that are left over by the shark. In commensalism, one species benefits, and the other is neither helped nor harmed. The last symbiotic relationship is called parasitism. An example of this relationship exists between humans and mosquitoes. The insects land on and take blood from humans. The mosquito benefits as it uses the blood for energy. The human or host is harmed in this relationship, as blood is needed, and the human could become infected with disease. In parasitism, one species benefits and the other is harmed. Mutualism, a relationship where both species benefit. Commensalism, one species benefits and the other is neither helped nor harmed. Parasitism, one species benefits and the other is harmed. Symbiosis.
Okay. The last food relationship here is saprophytism. And saprophytism is a food relationship in which saprophytes, or they have another name that's known as decomposers. So, it's a food relationship in which saprophytes or decomposers get their food by decomposing food remains or dead bodies or any dead organisms. You know, guys, that after death the dead bodies disappears after a certain time, right? That's because there is a type of living are known as decomposers, such as bacteria. They feed on dead bodies. Also, when you leave your food outside the fridge for many days, it spoils or rots. That happens because the decomposers or saprophytes, they are small, smart, or tiny living organisms. They feed on any remaining food or any dead bodies. As you know, like bacteria, and I bet you know this information from the last year. So, saprophytism is a food relationship in which saprophytes or decomposers get their food by decomposing food remains or bodies of the dead organisms. Any dead organisms, plants, human, animals, insects, birds, fish, whatever. So we have many examples of saprophytes or decomposers, like what? You know, bacteria. You know also any type of fungus or fungi. So we have examples like bacteria, bread mold fungus, mushroom, and any fungi grow on the spoiled food. So saprophytism is a food relationship in which saprophytes or decomposers get their food by decomposing or feeding on food remains or dead bodies, like bacteria, like mushroom, and we have any fungus or fungi like the one who grow on the bread, and it's known as bread mold fungus.
Learn about decomposers. What is a decomposer? A decomposer recycles dead plants and animals. When plants and animals die, they become food for decomposers. An example of an animal decomposer is an earthworm. Earthworms eat dead plants and animals. The waste that earthworms leave behind is rich in nutrients. Nutrients help plants to grow. Some bacteria are decomposers too. As a decomposer, bacteria helps to turn dead organisms into nutrients. Fungi are another type of decomposer. Mushrooms are a type of fungi. Molds and mildew are examples of fungi too. Decomposers, like all living things, get energy from food.
Okay, guys, I want you to remember that we have three types of food relationships among all living organisms. It could be predation, symbiosis, or saprophytism. In predation, it's a food relationship between predators and prey. Predators like lion, shark, crocodile, and so on. And predators here devour prey, and prey such as deer, rabbits, rats, and so on. Also, we said that predation happens in plants, and we have some plants, not all plants, devour small insects and sometimes small animals like small rats and small frogs to get its need from proteins like Drosera, Dionia. In symbiosis, it's divided into three groups. It has three types. It could be mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism. In mutualism, both of them get benefit, like the relation between nodular bacteria and bean plant. As we said before, nodular bacteria helps being plant by fixing the nitrogen on their roots. So bean plant can absorb nitrogen easily from the soil to make proteins, while bean plant help nodular bacteria by providing or giving bacteria with some sugar after making photosynthesis process. The second one is commensalism, and in commensalism, one gets benefit from the other while the other doesn't care. Neither gets benefit nor is harmed, like the relation between the sponge and the tiny aquatic organisms. The tiny aquatic organisms get its food from sponge, and it considers the sponge as a shelter or home for it, while the sponge neither gets benefit nor is harmed. The last one is parasitism, and I said in parasitism, it's a food relationship between two living organisms. One gets benefit and it's known parasite, and the other is harmed and it's known as host. And parasitism is divided into two groups, or it could be external or internal. External parasites like lice, ticks, fleas, mosquito. And all external parasites lives outside the host's body and sucks its blood. And some of them convey some diseases, like mosquito conveys malaria, and fleas conveys plague. We have also in internal parasites, any small worm lives inside the host's body and feeds on its digested food or tissues or cells, like bilharzia, like filaria, like tapeworm, like ascaris. And also we said that any internal parasites also convey some diseases to the host, like filaria worm causes elephantiasis. The last food relationship between two living organisms is saprophytism, and saprophytism or decomposing. The saprophytes or decomposers here, they decompose or they feed on dead bodies or any remaining food, like mushroom, like any fungus or fungi, like bread mold fungus, and bacteria. Okay, it's time to test yourself. I want you to mention the kind of relation between each of the following. The first one, lion and deer. What do you think? What's the relation between lion and deer? Super, it's predation. Okay, the second one, Drosera, plant and insects. It's also predation, amazing, but predation in plants, amazing. Number 3, nodular bacteria and bean plant. Super, it's mutualism, because both of them gets benefit from the other. Number 4, sponge and tiny aquatic organism. Amazing, it's commensalism. One gets benefit while the other neither gets benefit nor is harmed. Number 5, bread mold fungus and bread. I said any fungi, any type of fungi like bread mold fungus and any remaining food, it's saprophytism, amazing. Number 6, fungi or fungi and dead organisms. Super, it's saprophytism too. Number 7, lice and man. Amazing. It's parasitism, but what do you think? You have to mention, is it external or internal? External, so it's external parasitism, and you must differentiate between the word parasitism and parasite. Parasitism is the name of the food relationship, while the parasite is the name of the living who gets benefit. So don't write external parasites. You must write external parasitism because I asked about the type or kind of the food relationship here. Number 8, of course, it's internal parasitism as Chris and the man. Number 9, it's also internal parasitism. You're amazing. I hope you got this lesson. Thank you for listening. See you next time.